My best friend, Vivian Shaw, had been single for 25 years and had never even been in love when the hospital issued a critical illness notice for her. As she lay dying, she spoke her only last wish. The biggest regret of my life is that I've never had one wild, unforgettable romance. Sophie, in the last few days of my life, can I borrow your boyfriend for a while? Let me fall in love once, so I won't die with any regrets. Before I could answer, my boyfriend, Lucas Hale, stepped forward anxiously. I'm willing. Vivian, you're going to be okay, and I'll help you find the best doctors in the world. Considering that this was Vivian Shaw's only last wish, I had no choice but to agree. But I never expected that this illness of hers would last 3 years. She could not be cured, and she would not die. At first, Lucas still felt a little guilty toward me, but in the end, he became more and more impatient. It seemed that Vivian Shaw had no intention of returning what she had borrowed from me. Perfect, because I did not want to take back trash either. On our 5th anniversary, Lucas left me alone at the restaurant. I texted him and asked why he had not come. The next second his call came in. Are you insane? I told you I had to go with Vivian for her follow-up today, so why are you texting me? What if she sees it and starts overthinking? Pack up the food and bring it back, then apologize to Vivian, because only when she feels better can her condition recover faster. The call was cut off, and as I looked at the pouring rain outside the window, I suddenly laughed. For the 10th time, the server walked to my table and tapped on it. Miss, may we serve the food now? The customers waiting behind you have been waiting for a long time. I lowered my head. No need, just pack it up. My friend had something come up and isn't coming. The server froze for a moment, glanced at the candles and roses that had been set on the table in advance, and did not ask anything else. I gripped my phone tightly, picked up the bag, and walked into the rain. The icy rainwater poured down my neck, so cold it cut to the bone. When I reached the door of my home, muffled sobs came from inside. I pushed the door open, and Lucas was kneeling on one knee on the carpet. Vivian Shaw was curled up on the couch, one hand clutching her chest, crying so hard her whole body shook. It's all my fault. If I hadn't suddenly felt unwell, you wouldn't have missed your anniversary. If I had known this would happen, I would rather have died in the hospital 3 years ago than be disliked by Sophie now. Don't say nonsense. Lucas immediately panicked. Your illness isn't something you chose, so what does it have to do with you? It's Sophie who is too petty and refuses to let go of some tiny little thing, so don't take it to heart. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard movement in the entryway and turned his head. The moment he saw me, the tenderness on his face vanished, replaced by a face full of coldness. Why are you still standing there? Come over and apologize. Do I have to invite you? If I hadn't been home tonight, Vivian would have had no one by her side when her attack happened just now. She treated you like her best friend, but look at you, getting mad at me over some stupid anniversary. What the hell were you thinking? I did not speak and bent down to put the takeout boxes on the table. Rainwater dripped from the ends of my hair onto the floor. You promised this date half a month ago, and I waited at the restaurant for 3 hours, so am I not even allowed to text and ask? Lucas's face instantly darkened. He walked over, grabbed my wrist, and roughly dragged me in front of the couch. So what if you waited 3 hours? When Vivian gets better, we'll have plenty of time to celebrate anniversaries, so do you really need to make a big deal out of this? Hurry up and apologize to Vivian. Don't do this. Vivian Shaw reached out and weakly tugged on Lucas's sleeve. It's my fault, so don't blame Sophie, and she doesn't need to apologize to me. I delayed you too, so I'm the one who should apologize. You're just too kind. Lucas turned around, held her shoulders, and his voice was full of heartache. She almost made you have another attack, and you're still speaking up for her? You were nearly killed by your own best friend, so how do you not have any temper at all? I stood where I was. I watched the man I had loved for 5 years kneel half down in front of another woman. My heart felt as if it had been gripped tightly by a hand, hurting so much that I could not breathe. I was just about to speak. Vivian Shaw suddenly let out a muffled groan and clutched her chest. Vivian. Lucas's expression changed abruptly, and without thinking, he picked her up in his arms. He turned and walked toward the bedroom, and when he passed me, he threw out only one sentence. Look at what you've done. Bang. The bedroom door was slammed shut. I stood outside the door and raised my hand to knock. There was no response. Lucas had always kept the key to the guest room at home. Wind poured in from the balcony, and I shivered from the cold. I walked to the couch and sat down. The couch still held the scent of Vivian Shaw's perfume, so sweet it turned bitter. Voices occasionally came from the bedroom. I hugged my knees and curled up on the couch, sitting there with my eyes open until dawn. At 8 in the morning, someone knocked on the door. I dragged my numb legs over and opened it. Vivian's parents stood outside, both their faces full of worry. When Vivian's mother saw it was me, her face immediately fell. Sophie Reed, where is Vivian? How is she? Vivian's father frowned tightly, and the first thing he said was an accusation. You're supposed to be Vivian's best friend, So how could you do something like this? If Lucas hadn't called us, we would still be kept in the dark. Vivian's heart has always been weak, and 3 years ago she almost didn't make it, so why can't you just give in to her? Why do you have to fight with her? My hand gripped the doorframe, and I did not even have the strength to explain. Back then, it was clearly Vivian Shaw who cried and begged me, saying she wanted to borrow my boyfriend to fulfill her last wish. I nodded and agreed, giving up my own lover. So how did everything become my fault in the end? Move. Vivian's father impatiently pushed me aside. I lost my balance and my back hit the wall, the bones aching sharply. They passed me and rushed straight into the bedroom. My baby girl, are you okay? You scared me to death. Dad, Mom, why are you here? I'm fine, so don't blame Sophie because she didn't mean it. Silly girl, you're still speaking up for her. Lucas's voice was mixed in with theirs, gently comforting the two elders and telling a joke now and then to make them happy. The four of them talked and laughed, so harmonious that they looked like a real family. And I stood in my own wedding home, yet I looked like an unnecessary outsider. Before long, Lucas came out of the bedroom. When he saw that I was still standing there, he frowned. Why are you standing around like an idiot? Go pour a few cups of warm water and bring them in, because it wasn't easy for Vivian's parents to make the trip here. His tone was matter of fact, as if he were ordering around the housekeeper. I did not argue and turned into the kitchen. I carried in one cup after another, and refilled the water 3 times. Every time I went in, they were talking about Vivian Shaw's condition, and no one looked at me once. After refilling the water for the last time, I turned to leave. Lucas casually took a key from his pocket and threw it by my feet. Go back to your room and stay there for now, and stop wandering around here so you don't upset her parents. As he spoke, he was busy peeling grapes for Vivian Shaw and did not even raise his head. I lowered my head to look at the key on the floor, bent down and picked it up. I said nothing and turned to walk out. At noon, Vivian's parents left. Lucas reminded them to be careful on the road while repeatedly promising that he would take good care of Vivian Shaw. In the end, he even went downstairs personally to see them off. The front door closed, and the sound of footsteps faded away. The master bedroom door did not open, and Vivian Shaw did not come out. I pushed open the door and took one last look at the guest room where I had lived for 3 years. How ridiculous. The wedding home I once decorated with my own hands now only allowed me to occupy one pathetic corner. The sour ache in my chest surged upward uncontrollably. I opened my suitcase and began stuffing clothes inside. Halfway through packing, a muffled thud suddenly came from the living room. My heart lurched, and I immediately dropped the clothes and ran out. In the living room, Vivian Shaw had collapsed on the carpet in front of the couch. Her hand clutched her chest, and she gasped for breath in huge gulps. The TV on the wall was on. On the screen was an intense motorcycle racing game. The roar of engines was deafening. My heart tightened, and I turned to go to the bedroom to get her medicine. Just then, Lucas returned home after seeing off Vivian's parents and saw Vivian Shaw on the floor at a glance. His expression changed abruptly, and he rushed over in a few steps, pushing me away without thinking. Sophie, Reed, are you insane? You know perfectly well that Vivian has a bad heart and can't handle stimulation, yet you still played this for her to watch? Are you trying to kill her? I was shoved into the corner of the coffee table, and a dull pain shot through my lower back. I endured the pain and explained. This game was the anniversary gift I bought for you, and it had been kept in the cabinet the whole time, so I didn't show it to her. You're still making excuses. Lucas cut me off sharply. If you didn't play it, then did Vivian play it herself? She can barely walk, so how would she dig through your things? Can you have some sense of responsibility? Is it that hard to admit it when you've done something wrong? Why are you just standing there? Go get the medicine. His yelling made my eardrums hurt. I bit my lip, stumbled into the bedroom, and found the medicine bottle on the nightstand. After taking the medicine, Vivian Shaw's breathing slowly steadied. She leaned in Lucas's arms, tears in her eyes, her voice weak. Lucas, don't blame Sophie. It's all my fault. I just wanted to come out and pour a glass of water, and I accidentally saw it. It's not her fault. You're still speaking up for her. Lucas was so heartbroken that he held her even tighter. When he turned to look at me, the disgust in his eyes was almost overflowing. Back then, I wanted to keep 2 bodyguards at home to take care of Vivian, but you said having outsiders in the house would destroy our privacy and refused no matter what, and now look. I stepped out just long enough to see someone off, and something happened to her. I think you had bad intentions from the start. You've been wishing Vivian would die, and all of this was clearly planned by you long ago. I looked at him and suddenly found it very funny. 3 years. I had stepped back again and again and given in again and again. I thought there was still some place for me in his heart, and that guilt had simply blinded him. But it turned out that in his eyes, I had long since become a lunatic scheming to kill my best friend. I looked at him and said, word by word, Lucas Hale, let's break up. He looked as if he had heard the greatest joke in the world and laughed from sheer anger. He gently carried Vivian Shaw onto the couch. Then he stood up and walked toward me, his eyes dark and vicious. What, did I hit a nerve? You want to break up and walk away? It won't be that easy. I've put up with you more than once or twice, and every time you target Vivian. So today I have to teach you a lesson and make you remember it. I instinctively stepped back. What are you going to do? He did not answer, took out his phone, and made a call, his tone icy. Send 2 people up and get the rooftop safety rope ready. After hanging up, he looked down at me from above and said coldly, don't you like watching Vivian struggle on the edge of life and death? Then you can taste it yourself. In less than 2 minutes, 2 bodyguards walked in. Mr. Hale. Lucas's tone was calm, as if he were talking about something unimportant. Take her upstairs, tie her to the edge of the rooftop, and hang her there for a full day and night. I want her to experience what it feels like to struggle on the edge of life and death. No. Lucas, you can't do this. My face instantly turned pale, and I desperately backed away. I had been afraid of heights since I was a child, and he knew that better than anyone. In the past, whenever we climbed stairs together, he would carry me once we got past the 3rd floor because he was afraid I would get scared. But now he wanted to punish me like this for another woman. Lucas raised an eyebrow and signaled for the bodyguards to act. Why can't I? You should taste the suffering Vivian endured too. The 2 bodyguards stepped forward and grabbed my arms from both sides. I struggled desperately. Lucas, I'm afraid of heights. Have you forgotten? Please let me go. He turned his face away and did not look at me again. This is what you deserve. I was dragged toward the rooftop. My nails dug into my palms until they broke the skin, but I still could not break free. The wind on the rooftop was strong, slicing across my face like blades. A rope was tied around my waist, and my entire body was suspended in the air at the edge of the rooftop. Below my feet was a 6-story drop. With one glance down, the world spun around me. Fear drowned me like a tide. I screamed, cried, and begged Lucas to let me down. But there was no response. Only the howling wind filled my ears. I did not know how long had passed. My throat went hoarse from screaming, and my tears ran dry. The sun rose and set again. For a day and a night, I did not drink a single drop of water. My whole body went limp like a puddle of mud. When my mind blurred, the rope began to pull upward. I crashed heavily onto the ground. My vision went black, and I completely lost consciousness. When I opened my eyes again, I was lying in a hospital bed. There was a needle in the back of my hand, and I was on N4 drip. The hospital room was empty, without a single person inside. I moved my fingers, and my whole body hurt as if it were about to fall apart. Creak. The hospital room door was pushed open. Vivian Shaw walked in. Her makeup was flawless, and she did not look sick at all, while a mocking smile hung at the corner of her mouth. You're awake? Sophie Reed, I really do admire you. For 3 years, you watched your own boyfriend stay with me every day and act affectionate with me, yet you actually endured it until now. Your skin is much thicker than I thought. My eyes flew wide open. What about me? Lucas was not there, so she simply dropped the act and reached up to smooth her hair. Haven't you been suspicious all along? Now I'll be merciful and tell you that my critical illness was indeed fake. 3 years ago, I knew Lucas was soft-hearted, and as long as I pretended I was about to die and then brought up a last wish, he would definitely agree. Look, over these 3 years, he has spent far more time with me than with you, so what use is it for you to cling to the title of official girlfriend? His heart stopped being with you long ago. My whole body went cold, as if I had fallen into an ice cellar. She straightened up, looked at my pale face, and the smile on her lips grew even wider. Oh right, I forgot to tell you something. Do you know why your parents haven't come to see you even after you've been hospitalized for so long? My heart suddenly clenched. They heard that you bullied me and rushed over to apologize on your behalf, but they got into a car accident on the way. Vivian Shaw spoke lightly as she fiddled with her long manicured nails. They're lying in the ward upstairs right now, and the hospital issued a critical illness notice long ago. Lucas originally contacted foreign experts to come over for surgery, but well. She paused, her smile smug. As long as I say one word, he won't sign. Sophie Reed, do you think you'll become an orphan? You're lying. I abruptly sat up, tugging the needle in the back of my hand, and blood instantly gushed out. My parents treated you like their own daughter, so how could you do this to them? Vivian Shaw gave a mocking laugh. It's exactly because they treated me pretty well that I didn't have someone kill them on the spot, and left them with their worthless lives. With a boom, my mind went completely blank. So the car accident had also been arranged by her, this best friend whom I had treated with all my heart for more than 10 years. Not only had she stolen my boyfriend, but she also wanted to kill my parents. Rage instantly shot to my head. I threw off the blanket and lunged at her like a madwoman. I pinned her to the floor, straddled her, raised my hand, and slapped her across the face. Vivian Shaw, you psycho. How did my parents ever wrong you? Why would you hurt them like this? The needle rolled far away. Blood from the back of my hand flowed down my fingertips, but I could no longer feel the pain. Bang! Just then, the hospital room door was kicked open. Lucas stood in the doorway, and when he saw the scene in front of him, his eyes turned scarlet with anger. He rushed over and kicked me in the shoulder. I flew 2 meters away, my back hitting the foot of the bed, and the pain made me suck in a cold breath. Sophie, Reed, are you insane? He held Vivian Shaw protectively in his arms and checked whether she was hurt. When he saw the slap marks on Vivian Shaw's face, his chest heaved violently with anger. Vivian came to see you out of kindness, and you still dared to hit her. Looking at it now, your parents' car accident was karma. They raised such a vicious daughter, so they deserve to get hit by a car. I was originally going to save their lives, and the doctors from overseas are already on the plane, but now, it looks like there's no need. After saying that, he took out his phone and called his assistant. Have the private jet turn back, and cancel the surgery. No, Lucas, don't. My face instantly went deathly pale, and I scrambled over on my hands and knees to grab his pant leg. I was wrong, and I shouldn't have hit her, so please have the doctors come back. I'm begging you. Too late. He slapped me across the face with the back of his hand. The blow turned my head to the side, and blood seeped from the corner of my mouth. With all the strength in my body, I shouted the truth. Lucas, her illness is fake. She arranged the car accident too. She told me herself just now. I thought he would be shocked and regretful after knowing the truth. But after he heard it, he became even angrier. You still want to frame Vivian even now? He reached out and grabbed my neck, tightening his grip little by little. I think you really are beyond saving. Vivian is kind and speaks up for you again and again, but you keep throwing dirt on her again and again. What the hell is your heart made of? I struggled to breathe, and my vision went black in waves. The world was shrinking to a needlepoint of dark red. Lucas's fingers dug into the sides of my neck, his knuckles white, his eyes burning with a twisted, righteous fury. Beside him, Vivian leaned against the doorframe, her hand covering her mouth in a performative gasp of horror, but her eyes glittered with pure, unadulterated triumph. This is how I die. My brain whispered through the roar of rushing blood in my ears. Strangled in a sterile room while my parents bleed out upstairs. Suddenly, the door swung wide open, slamming hard against the wall. What the hell is going on in here? A commanding voice shattered the room. Before Lucas could react, a heavy hand grabbed him by the shoulder and threw him backward. He stumbled over a rolling stool and crashed violently against the wall, breaking his grip on my throat. Air rushed back into my lungs like shattered glass. I collapsed onto the linoleum, clutching my throat, coughing violently as my chest heaved in ragged, desperate gasps. Are you insane? This is a hospital. Standing over me was Dr. Harrison, the head of the hospital's trauma department, flanked by 2 armed security guards and a tall, sharp-eyed man in a dark gray suit. Lucas straightened his collar, his face flushed with embarrassment, though he quickly tried to assume his usual arrogant demeanor. Dr. Harrison, this is a private family matter. This woman just assaulted a fragile patient. A private matter? Dr. Harrison's voice was thunderous. He looked down at my bleeding hand, my neck already purpling with bruised finger marks, and then at the security camera mounted in the corner of the ceiling. Mr. Hale, you are on camera choking a patient who was admitted for physical exhaustion and high-altitude suspension trauma. Lucas's eyes flickered toward the camera, a brief flash of hesitation crossing his face before he sneered. She pushed Vivian. She tried to kill her. And her family owes me. Shut your mouth, Lucas. The man in the gray suit spoke up. His voice was cold, icy, and carrying an absolute weight of authority. Lucas froze. He turned to look at the man, his eyes widening slightly. Uncle Richard? What are you doing here? Richard Hale, the true patriarch of the Hale conglomerate and Lucas's uncle, a man who held 80% of the family firm's voting shares, did not even glance at Lucas. He walked straight past him and knelt beside me on the floor. Sophie, Richard said softly, his stern face filled with immense guilt. I came as fast as I could. Your father's personal secretary called my private line an hour ago. I looked up through blurred, tear-filled eyes, my voice raspy and broken. Mr. Hale. My parents, the doctors. I know, Richard whispered, gently patting my shoulder. Don't say another word. The foreign specialists aren't coming because of Lucas. They are coming because your father, Arthur Reed, funded their medical research institute in Zurich 15 years ago. They were already on my private jet before this idiot ever made a phone call. The air in the room seemed to freeze. Lucas's face drained of every drop of color. What? What do you mean? Arthur Reed is just a mid-level retired accountant. Richard stood up slowly, turning to face his nephew with a look of terrifying disgust. Arthur Reed was the lead financial auditor who saved our family business from bankruptcy 20 years ago, you blind, ungrateful, arrogant fool. Richard spat, his voice trembling with rage. He retired quietly to live a simple life with his wife. And you abused his daughter? You cancelled medical transport. For the man who built the foundation of your inheritance. Lucas stumbled backward, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. No, she said. Vivian said. I don't care what that snake told you. Richard barked. He gestured to the security guards. Escort this girl out of the hospital immediately. And as for you, Lucas, hand over your executive badge. You are suspended from all corporate duties pending a full board investigation. Uncle, you can't do this. Lucas shouted, his voice cracking with sudden panic. Vivian is sick. She has a critical heart condition. I'm doing this to save her. Vivian, seeing the tide turn violently against them, immediately clutched her chest, letting out a soft, pitiful whimper as she began to slide down the wall. Lucas, my heart, it hurt so much. In the past, this performance would have summoned an army of nurses and sent Lucas into a frenzy of protective rage. This time, Dr. Harrison stepped forward, his eyes cold as flint. He pulled a small digital tablet from his coat pocket and looked at Vivian. Miss Shaw, Dr. Harrison said calmly. I suggest you stop holding your breath. To spike your heart rate. I personally reviewed your original diagnostic scans. From 3 years ago this morning. Vivian's whimpering stopped instantly. Her body went completely rigid. The scans you used to claim a critical heart condition belong to a 62-year-old male patient named Shaw, your late uncle, Dr. Harrison revealed, his voice echoing clearly through the quiet room. You bribed a radiology technician to swap the names on the file. You have never had a heart condition in your life. The silence that followed was suffocating. Lucas stood frozen in the center of the room, staring at Dr. Harrison as if the doctor had just spoken in a dead language. What? What did you just say? Lucas whispered, his eyes slowly drifting toward Vivian. Shaw? A bribe. It's a lie. Vivian shrieked, her voice suddenly dropping all its sweet, fragile weakness, turning sharp and screechy. He's lying. Sophie bought him off. Lucas, you know me. You've seen me collapse. You've held me when I couldn't breathe. You collapsed, Dr. Harrison replied flatly. Because you took high doses of beta blockers before your doctor appointments to intentionally induce temporary low blood pressure and dizziness. We found traces of it in the routine blood panel we ran when you checked in today. It's all documented. Lucas looked at Vivian. Really looked at her. He looked at her perfectly manicured nails, her flawless foundation, her styled hair, and the sharp, vicious terror in her eyes. For 3 years he had worn blinders, treating her every whimper as a sacred command, sacrificing his 5-year relationship, his morality, and his humanity to protect her. And it was all a lie. Vivian. Lucas took a shaky step toward her, his voice trembling violently. Is it true? Did you fake it? Lucas. No. Listen to me. Vivian scrambled up from the floor, reaching for his arm. I did it because I loved you. I couldn't bear to see you with her. She didn't appreciate you. I only wanted to be with you. She had just admitted it. With her own mouth, in front of Richard Hale, Dr. Harrison, and the security officers, she shattered the 3-year illusion into dust. Lucas looked down at her hands touching his sleeve, the same hands he had held, gently while swearing she was an angel. A wave of profound, sickening revulsion washed over him. He shoved her away so hard she crashed into the bedside table, sending metal trays clattering to the floor. You lunatic. Lucas choked out, tears of sheer rage and humiliation spilling from his eyes. You made me choke Sophie. You made me hang her from a roof. You made me let her parents. He turned around frantically, looking for me. Sophie. Lucas fell onto his knees by the side of the bed, reaching out with trembling, blood-stained hands to touch my blanket. Sophie, baby. I didn't. No. I swear to God I didn't know. She tricked me. I was trying to save a life, I thought. Don't touch her. A cold, sharp voice interrupted him. Richard Hale stepped between Lucas and my bed, placing a heavy boot against Lucas's shoulder and shoving him backward onto the floor. You don't get to touch her, Lucas, Richard said, his eyes filled with absolute contempt. You didn't choke her because you were tricked. You choked her because you are a weak, arrogant coward who enjoyed playing the savior while trampling on the woman who built you. I lay on the bed, staring up at the white ceiling tiles. My neck throbbed with a dull, heavy ache. The blood on my hand had dried into a dark crust. Lucas was kneeling on the floor, weeping, begging, pulling at his hair, looking like a broken shell of a man. Vivian was cowering in the corner, her face pale as a corpse as 2 police officers, who had just arrived at Richard's request, stepped into the room with iron handcuffs. I looked at them both, and for the first time in 3 years, I felt no anger. I felt no sorrow. I felt only a cold, vast emptiness, the kind of absolute detachment that comes when a heart finishes dying completely. Mr. Hale. I said raspily, my voice barely a whisper through my damaged throat. Please take them out. I need to go see my parents. The next 48 hours moved with terrifying clinical speed. The foreign medical team arrived from Zurich via private jet at 3 a.m. They immediately took over my parents' care. After a grueling 14-hour surgery, both of my parents were moved out of the ICU and into stable recovery wards. When my mother finally opened her eyes and reached out her pale, trembling hand to touch my cheek, the last remaining knot of tension in my body snapped. I sat by her bed and wept quietly, letting 3 years of poison drain out of my soul. While my family healed, the world outside descended into a storm of retribution. Richard Hale was a man of ruthless efficiency. Within 24 hours of discovering the truth, he stripped Lucas of every title, asset, and credit card associated with the Hale conglomerate. The luxury apartment where I had lived, the one decorated with my own sweat and tears, was reclaimed by the estate and put up for auction. Furthermore, Richard hired the top criminal prosecution team in the country to pursue charges against Vivian Shaw. The police investigation unraveled a nightmare. Not only had Vivian faked her medical records and bribed hospital staff, but the police also uncovered the paper trail for her parents' spontaneous visit and the car accident. Vivian had hired a local gig worker, a man with heavy gambling debts, to sideswipe my parents' sedan at an intersection, giving him $50,000 in cash, drawn from an account Lucas had set up for her medical expenses. She didn't just want to steal my boyfriend. She had systematically attempted to destroy every support structure in my life, so I would be left completely helpless, forced to leave the city in shame. 2 weeks later, the preliminary bail hearing was held at the district courthouse. I attended the hearing in a sharp, dark gray tailored suit, accompanied by Richard Hale and my family's legal counsel. My parents were still recovering in the VIP ward, but their statements had already been submitted to the judge. When Vivian was led into the courtroom in bright orange prison scrubs, her hands shackled, she looked like a drowned rat. The flawless makeup was gone, her hair was matted, and her face was sunken with sheer terror. Behind the defense table sat Lucas. In just 2 weeks, he looked as if he had aged 20 years. His expensive suits were gone. He wore a rumpled Uniron jacket. His eyes were hollow, surrounded by dark purple circles. He didn't look at Vivian once. He kept his head down, staring at the floor, his hands shaking constantly. When the prosecutor listed the charges, attempted murder, severe bodily harm, grand fraud, extortion, and bribery, the judge's face turned into a mask of thunder. Bail was denied completely. As the guard stepped forward to drag Vivian toward the holding doors, she finally broke. She turned toward Lucas, screaming at the top of her lungs, her tears smearing across her dirty face. Lucas, help me. You loved me. You promised to take care of me forever. She shrieked, kicking her legs against the floorboards. Tell them I'm sick. Tell them my heart hurts. Lucas. Lucas slowly raised his head. He looked at Vivian, his eyes filled with a disgust so toxic it could curdle milk. Shut up, Lucas said, his voice flat, raspy, and dead. Just shut up, you monster. Vivian's screams faded down the concrete hallway as the heavy steel doors slammed shut behind her. The courtroom cleared out, leaving only me, my legal team, and Lucas sitting in the wooden pews. I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and turned to leave. Sophie. Lucas's voice was small, cracked, and trembling. He stood up from his seat, taking a slow, hesitant step toward me. He didn't dare come too close. He stood 5 feet away, looking at me like a condemned man looking at his executioner. Sophie, please, he whispered, tears streaming down his hollow cheeks. Just give me 5 minutes. Please. I stopped, looking at him with absolute, unreadable stillness. You have 1 minute, Lucas. He choked back a sob, falling straight onto his knees on the cold hardwood floor of the courtroom. The man who had once stood arrogant, demanding I kneel and apologize to a liar, was now bowing his head until his forehead touched my shoes. I am sorry. I'm so sorry, Sophie, he wept, his hands clutching his own knees. I was blind. I was an arrogant, disgusting fool. I let her manipulate me. I thought I was being a good person. I thought I was helping someone dying. You didn't think you were helping a dying person, Lucas, I said softly, my voice devoid of anger, carrying only a terrifying, crystal clarity. You enjoyed the God complex. Lucas froze, his shoulders shivering. You loved how much she depended on you. I continued, looking down at his bowed head. You loved feeling like a hero who could control life and death. You loved having a reason to humble me, to make me beg, to prove that your control over my life was absolute. Vivian didn't trick you into becoming a monster, Lucas. She just gave your arrogance an excuse to come out. Every word I spoke hit him like a physical blow. He began to weep louder, clutching his chest. gasping for breath as if he were the one experiencing a heart attack. I loved you for 5 years, I said quietly. I gave up my youth, my patience, and my dignity for you. I let you walk over my boundaries because I thought you were just foolish and overwhelmed by guilt. I took a slow step back, pulling my shoes away from his reach. When you hung me from that rooftop for 24 hours in the freezing wind, you killed whatever was left of my love for you. And when you strangling me, while my parents lay dying upstairs, you made sure I would never look at your face without feeling complete revulsion. Sophie, no, please. Lucas reached out frantically, his fingers brushing the hem of my trousers. Give me a chance to make it up to you. I'll give you everything. I'll work for your father. I'll spend the rest of my life earning your forgiveness. I don't want your life, Lucas, I said, stepping past him toward the double doors. And I don't want trash back in my home. In the months that followed, the consequences of their actions unfolded with absolute, merciless precision. Vivian Shaw's trial concluded 4 months later. Armed with the medical evidence, the CCTV footage, the financial records, and the confession of the hired truck driver, the court found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 22 years in a maximum security state penitentiary without the possibility of early parole. Her parents, who had willingly participated in the emotional abuse and extortion, were exposed publicly. The small business her father ran defaulted on its loans as clients pulled out in disgust. Within half a year they were ruined, forced to sell their home to pay off legal fees and civil damages awarded to my family. As for Lucas Hale, his fall was slower, quieter, and infinitely more painful. Richard Hale made sure Lucas was blacklisted across the entire financial sector. No firm would hire him, no investor would meet with him. He was stripped of his trust fund, his sports cars, and his penthouse apartment. To survive, he took a job as a night shift logistics clerk at a cold storage warehouse on the outskirts of the city, working 12-hour shifts in freezing temperatures, earning minimum wage to pay off his mounting personal debts. Every night, as he sat alone in a damp, unheated single-room rental apartment, he opened his phone to look at a small, hidden photo gallery, photos of the two of us from 4 years ago, back when we were happy, back when he was loved by a woman who would have given him the world. And every night, he wept until his throat went raw, knowing that he had thrown gold away for poison, and that no amount of tears would ever bring it back. 1 year later, the spring sun was warm and bright, streaming through the floor-to-ceiling glass windows of the Reed Architecture Studio in the heart of the Arts District. My parents were sitting in the lounge area, sharing a pot of floral tea. My father had fully recovered from his injuries, his face healthy and relaxed, while my mother laughed as she flipped through a portfolio of my latest design sketches. Sophie, dear, my mother called out smoothly. The catering team for the studio's anniversary opening just arrived. Where should they set up? In the main gallery, Mom, I replied, stepping out from my private office. I was wearing a sleek ivory linen suit, my hair styled in a sharp, modern cut, my eyes bright, clear, and full of life. Over the past year, with the support of my parents and Richard Hale's firm, I had officially launched my own independent architectural design firm. My first major project, an eco-friendly community center for underprivileged children, had won 3 national design awards last month. My life was no longer lived in a dark guest room. It was no longer bound by someone else's fake tears or arrogant demands. It was vast, beautiful, and entirely my own. A shadow crossed the glass front door of the studio. A man in a worn, faded jacket stood on the sidewalk outside, clutching a small, battered box of pastries from the bakery down the street. It was Lucas. He looked gaunt, his hands calloused and rough from warehouse labor, his clothes threadbare. He stood by the glass, looking in at the warm, brightly lit studio, looking at my parents laughing, looking at me standing radiant in the sunlight. He didn't dare open the door. He didn't dare step inside. He just stood there in the cold spring wind, tears dripping down his hollow cheeks, clutching the cheap pastries he used to buy for me years ago. I caught his gaze through the glass. My expression didn't change. My heart didn't beat faster. There was no hatred in my eyes, no satisfaction, no desire for vengeance. There was only complete, absolute indifference. I turned my head away, picked up my blueprints, and walked toward my parents, leaving the ghost of my past standing outside in the cold, forever locked out of the light he had so foolishly destroyed.